Welcome to my sculpting bench, guys. This is MJ Hobby Corner, and I started this new project on Monday. Today's Tuesday, and I have progressed quite a bit. Okay, so some of the things I'm just going to point them out here just to talk about them a little bit. Here is the bird anatomy and mammalian anatomy. And this is a very interesting fantasy creature, griffins. I've always liked griffins because they mix that sort of mammalian body plan with bird, with avian body plan. So that's really cool. So anyway, here is the bird's leg. And as you see, I started doing scale work. I have a lot of little ridges and bumps here representing scales. There's a couple of little spurs here that I sculpted it into the fur, and I'm going to detail those a little bit more. And here is sort of a bone area, right, that just protrudes out of the fur, the kneecap, basically. So this thing, almost, it's like, if this is the kneecap, then this is the ankle. So pretty cool. And of course the tail, and I have this fuzzy thing going on here. I'm going to keep kind of detailing that a little bit. Let me just turn on another light. This way you can see the details a little better. Yeah, sorry about that. It was a little dark. And of course the diamond-shaped areas here with the feathers. I'm going to be working on that a little bit more. Now, half of this sculpture, when I showed you guys on Tuesday, it was half complete. And today I added the other half. So what are some of the things that I keep in mind when sculpting? First of all, it's a three-dimensional object, right? Without say. So that means that I have to look at this figure from every single angle. And so here, things are a little thin, a little skinny. I'm going to be adding to that in there just to give a little bit more musculature, right? But the idea is that I do want a slim figure. I mean, this guy supposedly flies. I'm going to add the wings here. You don't see that yet. You don't see any trace of wings, but you will see it. And they're going to be closed wings. I'm not going to have them open. So I do want a creature that's kind of slim and agile looking, but it's also big. I mean, this is a big figure. This is going to be a big creature. So basically look all around and then make sure that all my details, 360-degree view, right? Everywhere I look, I have to make sure that I have something, right? Notice here too, I do the little V marks. There's one here and they're kind of opposite each other. That's just to add detail, to say, these are areas where the fur is parting, right? Maybe there's muscle under there. There could be bone under there, right? And so it's creating these little indentations and parting of the fur, even if the fur is a little bit long, right? And covers most of the body. Also, if you notice, I'm going to try to focus and see if the light shows it, but I have added details here as well. And that's the whole part of, looking at it from a 3D angle and kind of looking everywhere. I like to add details everywhere, even on the belly where you're not going to see it as much. I add details. So that's just the way I like things. So now it needs a head, and by tomorrow you should see a head. I also have to finish this rear leg and then do the lion legs up here, because a griffin usually and I could have my creatures mixed up, but hey, this is fantasy. It doesn't matter. Here, there's going to be lion paws or cat-like paws, and then these are going to be the bird legs, right? And then I'll have my wings here. Now, for wings, I have a lot of ways of dealing with wings. So I will show that in a future video. Now, I've progressed quite a bit. Okay, so that's great. This figure should be almost done. Now, what are some of the things that I do? I also used a scissor, and I have this special scissor that I use for clay. And in order to make the tail, I did this. I snipped the clay. I wet my scissors, and I actually snip it. And that works so much better than rolling little pieces and, that kind of thing. And to make these spurs, I actually did the same thing. I took my scissor, sharp scissor, and snipped the clay, made sure it's wet, and snip it. Now I'm going to add more detail to that fur to kind of blend things in a little bit, but for now I think that's good. So use scissors, use any tool. Some of your best tools are going to be homemade tools, okay? Now this half, I don't have to worry. So one of the other tidbits that I have is when you're sculpting, sculpt in small increments. So I sculpted all this and then stopped yesterday. Let this harden. So now I can handle this part with no problem while I work on this part. Nothing is more discouraging than you try to do the whole figure in one day and you work hours on a particular piece and accidentally you smush it with your finger. Because you forget, and that's just the way it is. You're looking at places to hold the figure, and despite the fact that you have this bottle as a handle, there is the habit of, or the necessity sometimes to hold it from other places very carefully, right? So letting it dry and then working on it little by little is one of the things that I find works best for me. The other thing, know a little bit of animal anatomy. I worked as a wildlife biologist many years. Of course, that information is not necessarily, not the way I studied it is necessarily important in this kind of work, but it helps to know a little bit of the very basics of animal anatomy. It helps. It really does help. Even for fantasy, especially for fantasy, I think. And what else? When you work with these clay mixes, like I said, I work with clay mixes. This is a mix of Super Sculpey baking clay, green stuff, and Avi's resin clay as well. So when I work with these resin clays, one of the things is that you may be pressing on one area and all of a sudden another area shifts. It's because of that sort of gumminess. And that happens especially when you're working with pure green stuff. And you wet it, right? Moisture tends to travel through the green stuff, and then it kind of ends up somewhere else, and it pushes, or air, because it is airtight. When you push it, the air kind of pushes somewhere else, and it deforms something else. Mixing the clays does alleviate that. And another thing that I find is there are times where you're going to work very, very gently, very, very slowly. You don't want to push that clay in. You want to do it very gently, very slowly, hit the same areas over and over, and you'll see how all of a sudden, you get good results. And that's the thing with these clays, hold a ton of detail. I mean, these clays are designed for that. They can hold a ton of detail, but you do have to, there is a learning curve, I think. For these clays and clay mixes, especially the clay mixes. All right, and I think that's all I have to say. If I hope that the video is not too long. I hope it was of interest, but yeah. So let's see if I can finish this sculpture, and this is going to be a Griffin, mostly for Julie's nature armies. Forces of nature armies. So let's see, I got some work to do still on this, but I'm going to let it dry, I think, and save my progress. All right, folks, thank you very much. This is episode 2 of the Griffin. Kind of a little side project. More sculptures to come, folks. More armatures to come. And stay tuned. More gaming figures to come.